part of my conversation to the players was that, talent will win you games, but brotherhood will win you championships. Well, I did meet all the players and I said to them, listen, just so everyone knows, I used to play and I'll be near the bench and I'll wear a jersey if you need it. So this year, I was actually just down with Melbourne United team. I met a bunch of the new players going through this. So we've got a bunch of new players coming on this season. We've probably had more turnover of new players coming in this season than we've had the last 2 seasons. We've got Tyson, who's just come in from America. He's played with Michigan over there. So I'm really excited to see what he can bring. I'm a really big fan of Milton Doyle. I loved watching Milton play for Tasmania for the last couple of seasons. I didn't enjoy him beating us in the series that we lost to Tasmania, but I've always liked Milton. So he's coming in. So I'm really excited about what he's going to be bringing as well. And the summer league's just finished. So we've got about 4 or 5 big men that we've kind of come down to, the 5th man spot, we've kind of narrowed down to. So we're having great conversations with them right now to try and bring that spot in. And we've got a couple others. We've got, Fabian, who's come up from Jack Jumpers, Finn Delaney, who's coming, and a few others that have come. So I think it's whenever you got a new team, plus we've got our veterans that have been around, like, Chris has been around for a long time. Once they come and they join that vet team, I think it's exciting, but the first thing is you're trying to get on the same page, make sure that the chemistry is right. I had a conversation with them the other day, and my advice to them as part of my conversation to the players was that, talent will win you games, but brotherhood will win you championships. So that's the first thing we're trying to focus on with the new players coming in, to try and understand our culture. That's one of the things I love the most about Melbourne United. And if I liken it to the NBA, I've been a Boston fan my whole life. And what I love about Boston is the Boston culture, that it doesn't matter what player you are, where you've come from. When you come to Boston, you become you play in the system that wins championships. And there's other clubs out there that they don't have that. They bring one player and the whole thing changes. So we try and bring the right players in for our framework that works, and having a great coach with great experience like Dean, who's about to go and be involved in the Boomers the next couple of months, who's just veteran coach. I think, my opinion, is the best coach in the league right now. The number one focus is bringing great talent, but also making sure that they can be on the same page for the chemistry. Because look, everyone can shoot jump shots. Everyone can defend. But basketball at an elite level isn't about can you make a shot. It's about can you make a shot when you got defenders in your face? Can you listen and pay attention and deliver when there's 30 seconds left and we're down and we've got to run a play? That's what professional sport's about. And that's where the chemistry, the relying, when you're coming down the court and you're looking, do I pass to that one or do I pass that way? If you have belief in your players, if you have belief in the people that are on your team, you'll make the right pass to the right person at the right time, and they'll feel the confidence in not just making the shot, but they'll feel the confidence if they have a bad game or they have a bad shot and they miss, that the team's still there to be able to be part of it. And so for me, really excited about new players coming in, and really excited about building the best chemistry that we can right away. And we'll hit the Blitz, which is our campaign first, with a couple of games up in Canberra. And then we kick off the season in Tasmania against the Jack Jumpers, which is going to be an exciting game to start off with. But I'm excited. I think that it's like in business. Anytime you have new people come in, there's new opportunities. There's new opportunities. Now, yes, we've had some really great plays the last couple of seasons, and I've only been involved really last season, my first full season. And then the season before, I was just there for the championship phase, which was pretty exciting to start. But I'm a lot more involved now. I'm a pretty active investor. The first 10% stake, I was already going to be an active investor and want to give value. But this time around now, now investing, having the 25% stake and taking over from the legacy that Larry had built, being the owner of the team and buying the rest of his stake out now. I had a great conversation with him, and he really does feel like he's kind of past, his kind of first baby over, which is Melbourne United before he became a league owner. I feel very honored to be able to take that over and take a 40+ year legacy in Melbourne United, Melbourne Tigers over, and with the rest of the ownership group, work together on a bigger future. And with new players coming on, it's a great chance to bring new energy in and start to focus on what's next. Because I've always believed in basketball, you've got these, some people believe in having like build seasons where you kind of don't do that well because you're trying to build the right players and then you become a championship team. I don't believe in that. I think every year we have to compete for a championship, which means we have to have the right players, the right team. And I don't want to start a season without me, the rest of the ownership group, the team, the back office, the front office, everyone going, right, we can do this and we can win this year. And that's what I feel like is possible this season. New breed of people, new types of people. But I really think if we can get the chemistry right, that brotherhood within the team right, and we're under that veteran coach that we have in Dean, there's no reason why we can't finish top 2, which is always our goal, finish top 2, and then win a championship. We came so close in the last 2 seasons, and there's nothing that can quite prepare you for winning, I think, than being on the other side of losing when you've lost in the hardest way possible. We lost in a 5-game series last season against Illawarra. We lost in a 5-game series the season before against the Jack Jumpers. And, for me, we've been through it. We've been to the very, very end and lost twice. But look at the caliber of who we are. We've been in the final series last 7 of the last 8 seasons. So, we're a championship team. We're a championship business. And when you are a champion, you'll always find ways to build a championship team. Doesn't matter what you do. Whether once you've had that taste for it and you've been there before, you know what it takes to get there. You've got to get the right players. They've got to have the right chemistry and make that work. But I think this season, maybe I'm bigger, maybe because I'm probably even more involved. I feel probably even more, not just even more excited, but even more adamant that we can make it happen. We also had to, make changes and think about what we need to change going into the next season, because, we didn't get there the last 2. It doesn't matter how you chop it up. We didn't get there. We didn't deliver in the last 2. And you can look at a play, you can look at a game, you can look at a moment, but the reality is that we didn't get there. So just like in business, you have to sit down at that end of that quarter and go, okay, we didn't get there. What has to change, right? What do we need to do now? And we've got a great team and a great coaching staff that really are obsessed over how do we get to and remain a championship team. And so, I think this season, absolutely. I think that we're the pedigree that Melbourne United has, the legacy that Melbourne United has, the players that we have, and we want it. You look at guys like Chris Goulding. He's been in the league for a very long time. And, being the veteran that he is, you expect veterans like that to kind of slowly peter down and just kind of, add a little value. He's just come off one of the best seasons he's ever had, right? And the season before, he's not winding down at all. I think that, we have a championship team. We've got some young players coming in. We've got some veterans that are coming in. And I think that as a club, and our members, it's time for us to win that championship. And I think that we can, and we're in the right position to be able to do it this year. Yeah. So being an investor in general, I look at different investments for different reasons, right? Melbourne United, for me, on the open market would probably fetch $50 million as a business, right? And I think that's probably conservative. I think as a category, the sports industry as a category of investments is going to be growing globally. I mean, look at what the Lakers just sold for, $10 billion. You got the Boston going for $6 billion. I think that you're seeing the increase in sports as a category being really important. Guys like Mark Cuban have just set up a new fund to focus on sports investments. I think sports gives something that you really can't get from a lot of other places. It gives entertainment, it gives excitement, it gives hope, it gives community, it gives a place where you feel like you belong. There's not many places you can go to where you can sit next to an absolute stranger, and because Chris Goulding makes a 3, you look at the person next to you you've never met before and you give them a hug. You give them a high five. I mean, tell me another industry where that kind of community and that kind of connection is possible. And I think sports gives that to you. It gives that camaraderie. And I think that we live in a world where we're more connected than ever before, but we're a lonelier world than ever before. And I think that sports can really be that bridge between people. It also sets aside whatever's going on in your life, and you can just enjoy that 2 hours, especially in basketball, where you can just focus on nonstop entertainment and fun. And so for me, as a business perspective, I think the category is growing. I think sports in general worldwide is undervalued. And I think in Australia, and even of the AFL, I look at the comparisons to AFL, mate, you get 50, 60, 70, 80, 90,000 people to watch an AFL game. And, from some of the recent reports is they think that an AFL team might be worth about 130 million. There's absolutely no way it can be worth that little compared to what that does. And so I really think we're going to see all sports have a rise. So from a commercial perspective, I'm here for the growth in the club and where that can go from a valuation standpoint. It's one of the reasons why I invested into the club from a commercial perspective. We're pulling all the stops. We're probably going to spend more this season than we have on salary before. And we increase that every year to try and get the right talent. But then I grew up playing basketball, so for me, I like other sports, but I wouldn't be as excited if it was another sport, if it was football or netball or tennis, because it's not what I grew up playing. So for me, this is, I'm not investing just because I used to play this growing up, but it's kind of cool for me. If I think back to some of my earliest memories, we grew up with not a lot. Parents divorced when I was 2 years old. And so, when you have single parent homes, you've got one salary for most part coming in. And so I remember my mum saved up to take me to a game. There's 2 games I remember. And one, she took me to watch Melbourne Tigers versus the Sydney Kings. I remember being in the crowd. I think it was Rod Laver at the time. And there was going to be like 12,000, 13,000 people, up in the very top of the stands. We could touch the roof. We were so high, but I didn't give a shit. I was at a basketball game, and those things spurred me on to go out there and play 2-3 times a day, to train and play 6 days a week, to be obsessed with it from 11 years old till I started to play a little bit less when I became 18, 19, but 11 till like 18, that's all I did. I could be at a party on a Saturday night, partying till whatever time, and then literally get home. You leave that party early, get home to get up at 6 a.m. to be at training by 7 a.m. on the Sunday morning. And that was just because I had to. I would prioritize that over anything. So yeah, being a part of something that I remember seeing when I was a younger kid, the legacy of, the Gaze eras and his dad and what he brought as a coach, and to be a part of that and take that legacy is something that I'm really excited about. So from a business perspective, I think it makes sense. And I'm here for I'm here for the long term. I'm not here for the, in and out kind of 2-year turnaround deal. I'm really here for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and what this means. And then also, from a personal perspective as well, it's really cool to be able to experience this with my friends and my family, and have my kids sit there and watch a game and have my family come and be a part of the atmosphere of what it is, and continue to look at ways to improve that for members, to improve that for the league as a whole. And I think if you look at what the league's done in the last 10 years under Larry Kesselman, you can look at every factor and you see that a guy put up his own time and his own money to try and turn that thing around from what it became, because it wasn't that, as a product, it wasn't that great 10, 12, 13 years ago. It wasn't. Now it's an unbelievable product. Its valuations increased considerably, and I like where it's going. I like the trajectory that the league is on. I think that the league and the clubs are going to benefit from that growth together. And the next 10 years, I think, is going to be really exciting for the sport. And I think every time we get more people to come and watch a game, those are the kids that go home and shoot until it's so dark they can't see the ring, and their parents are yelling at them to go to bed, but they keep shooting anyway. And they're the ones that become the NBL stars. And then they're the ones that become the NBA stars. And so I think that we also have an obligation to become better at what we do, to get more friends and family and people to come and enjoy this. Or just, people are finishing up work, want to hang out somewhere with their buddies, instead of just going to the local bar, have it come hang out here for 2 hours. You can drink and watch sports and have fun. And I think that there's a real obligation around that, I think, as well, to do that. So if I look at all the avenues of why I invest because I like to invest with purpose. I like to be around things I think I can add value to. I like to be around products and services that I think enhance the value of somebody else's life. If I look at all those things, and I like to be things that impact my life as well, to that I can get some kind of, personal value from, like sitting there and being a part of it. Basketball, Melbourne United, the NBL, all of that ticks all those boxes. So it became a no-brainer for me to say, let's go from 10 to 25%. Let's go deeper and be even more involved and see where this takes us. So I like a lot of people in Australia, because Australia has one of the highest penetrations of watching of the NBA per capita than any other country in the world. So basketball is huge over here, right? Yes, granted that most, when they say, do you watch basketball, they're telling you about an NBA team. Yes, and we're hoping to chip away into that, have more and more and more come to the NBL as a product. But for me, I was probably 10, 11. I loved growing up. I loved watching Orlando Magic. I will admit that I had Orlando Magic Duna cover in my room. I love Shaq and Hardaway, and these guys are all part of that system. I love watching the game. I love Michael Jordan. I collected all the cards. So I think at a younger age, I used to love watching it. I used to love playing it, mucking around. And at probably about 10, 11, I was like, okay, well, maybe could I join a team? So I convinced my mum to let me, because it's a commitment, right? Like, it's the training, it's the games, it's the travel. And so then I got in. My first game, I think I was 10, 11, something like that. I played for the Mulgrave Hurricanes, I remember. I still have the jersey, this tiny jersey. We played and we lost our very first game ever. I remember it clearly, right? We lost the game. And I was so devastated. At the end of the game, I was on the sidelines. I wasn't on the court for the end of the game. And I was so devastated. I was crying. I mean, like, properly wailing on the sidelines, like in my hands, on the crying. Mum was like, it's okay, we're going to go. And I was like, it's just a game. I'm like, I know, we lost. So I knew I'm very competitive and I loved watching it. And then when I played, I was like, this is it. This is my thing. And I think for me as well, when you're playing, it's really hard to think about other stuff. When you're just shooting around, you're playing with buddies. So it was also a chance for me to have an outlet away from other challenges of childhood and challenges of just life. When I was younger, it was that outlet for me to go and spend some time doing it. So yeah, from 10, 11, after seeing it on TV, going to some games, start to collect cards, wouldn't everyone had posters up of all their famous, all the TV stars that they loved, all those ones are up, Mine was just all literally basketball player posters. My entire walls were basketball player posters everywhere. I loved it. And and so I just saw it as a game that I could become good at. I was not naturally talented at it at all. I had to work at every kind of place that I got, and in playing, I was not talented. I was not faster than everybody else. I was not, I wasn't a better scorer or a better defender. I really had to work at it. So it consumed a lot of my time, and it just gave me something that I could pour into. Yeah, it took me a lot of lessons. One of my challenges I had playing basketball, and maybe it was my ADHD as a kid, but when the coach would say, here's the play we're running, we need to do this, 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 and this, I found it really challenging to remember that when I went on the court and do that. And that was a problem, because as you get older, it's very much like you go here, you go here. It's not like just get the ball and whoever can give it a go, share it around, And so I really struggled with that. So firstly, it taught me I wasn't going to work out working for anybody else, because taking instructions wasn't my forte. That's the first lesson it taught me. The other lesson it taught me is, I remember there was one time that we had a really good team and we won every game of the season. And then we got to the grand final and we lost. And I remember that. And if I remember why I think about what happened was, we had a lot of individually good plays that kind of made it work for the season. But then when it was really challenging, we didn't have the brotherhood. We didn't have that connection that we needed. And although we were on paper the better team, the other team would just play better as a team. They just worked better as a unit. And so we lost the finals, right? And that was one of the first finals I think that I played in. It went under 12s, under 14s or something like that. But that was really, that taught me a lot about, in business, you got to get A grade players, right? You got to get the best people, but you've got to get the best people that work with your culture. that work with your business. You can't just hire these individual silo people that just do their own thing, that are really good at what they do. You've got to build a team and a culture that can deliver. And so in business, for example, when I first used to start hiring people, I used to hire people that were just like me. They were just like me. And so then I'd have all these duplicates of people that were all, I'm a big thinker, I'm an ideas person, I'm a strategy person, but the detail, like I can jump in the detail and get into the weeds when I'm trying to fix a problem, but I don't live there. I don't live in the weeds. But then if you don't have someone living in the weeds, then you have things go wrong in your business. So then I went, hang on, I need to build my teams like in basketball. Who's your point guard? Like, who's the person that's running the play? Now, if I'm the point guard, if I'm the one going, hey, here's what we need to do, who's the shooting guard? Who's the one scoring the points? Who's the person getting the rebounds? Who's my defender? Who's my person that I can get into the post? Who's my go-to when it's, when it's late in the game, I have to get a score? Like, who's the go-to person when we need some money? We're like, who can I get to make a phone call? And I think when you think about that and you start playing that, you start to think about, well, I need to put a team together that can do the job that's needed in that business, in that industry for that time. So it taught me to start assembling great teams and not just hiring great talent. So I got a lot of respect for Larry, and there's many reasons why, and I'll give you some of them. So number one, when somebody's worth what they're worth, when someone's a billionaire, and they don't need to work, yet they work like they don't have anything, like they really want to achieve. And I respect that. In my line of work, I've met easily a couple of hundred billionaires in my time across the world, and multimillionaires, thousands. And I'm always looking at the traits that the best have. And I love that about him. I love that he was willing to work at the rate that he does, number one. Number two, he took a chance on being involved in the NBL. It was dire straits when he got involved. He came in, he purchased part of the club, purchased the club, then he purchased more of it, then he purchased the NBL, and then he put over $70+ million of his own money into trying to revive this thing and put it back to where it needs to be. Now, the story he told me for why he got involved was he and his son used to go and watch some of the games growing up, and Larry was never a basketballer himself, but Justin, his son, loved it, and he said that they really bonded over basketball. And so he got to know basketball more, and he kind of saw it as a great opportunity to be involved in something in a bigger way that he shared a lot of his family memories with. And so to watch what he's done over the last decade or so with the league, for me, I knew I wanted to be involved. So I remember reaching out probably a few years back now. We knew a lot of the same people, but we hadn't spent a lot of time together. So we got together, and I just said to him, I'm really interested in it. He told me right away he was very interested in me being involved. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been successful in business. I love basketball. I'm living in Melbourne. So for me, I know it ticked a lot of boxes for him, for me to be involved. I then looked at a lot of clubs. I looked at a lot of clubs. I went down to Tasmania. I looked at their product down there because he was looking at potentially selling the whole thing, which he's done. Brisbane, he had some investment in Brisbane. So I looked at Brisbane and a few others. And look, I knew right away it was Melbourne United that I wanted to land on. And so I wanted to be involved. I could have been involved in a deeper way right away, like where I am today, but I wanted to get a little bit involved and understand a little bit first. But I knew right away that I wanted to be involved because I respect, you can look at, people say success doesn't teach you anything. I think it's absolute bullshit. I think it does. If you look at the success of what he's built in the league and what he's done, and can you improve on things? Absolutely. Can you make things better? Of course you can. Of every business. And he's doing his best to try and improve and get the better deals for everybody and try to get that right. But I look at the last 10 years and the NBL is probably valued at $350 million right now. And he bought it for what, 12 million or something? I mean, you look at any metric you want and you can see the success. So I like that he's walking the talk and doing it. Of course, he's been an entrepreneur for a long time, and yes, very successful from his exit from Dodo and built that up, and many other companies. And what people might not realize is that he's just like me, private equity guy. He's involved in lots of very successful companies and brands that he's been behind. So we hit it off right away because we're both entrepreneurs, we're both empire builders. I know that if you want to be successful, part of that equation is being around other successful people. This is a lonely journey in entrepreneurship. Think about it. There's only maybe 10% of, in Australia, there's about 11% of people that decide to go into business, 11%. And what percentage of those people decide to have more than one business? We're talking like 0.01%. So there's 0.01% of people in Australia that have more than one business, have an empire like what I do and what I teach. And so Larry, already having his own empire, we kind of hit it off in that way. And look, it's not just about selling something, for him. It was also about getting the right people and the right person on board. And so after meeting me and my family and, seeing my passion for the game and me understanding what he's all about too, because it's a partnership, right? The sport is a partnership between us, the clubs, and the players, and the club and the league. It's a partnership. Players play really well. It looks great for the team. The team do really well. That's great for the NBL. We are in a true partnership. And so I need to, be convinced, I suppose, that was on the trajectory that I believed in from a business perspective, commercial perspective, and that he was in it for the right reasons. And I believe that he is. I think that from what I've seen so far, I think the results speak for themselves. And I think that everyone's benefited from it and everyone will benefit from that. And it's a true partnership. So it was as much of me making sure this was the right decision for me, as much as I'm sure it was for him to make sure it was the right decision to also sell and get the right people. And I think that we're all excited. He and I, but we always end up talking about ideas, and we're getting together whenever we can to shoot ideas around and chat on the phone and have a phone call every now and again to be like, hey, what about this idea? And so I think that's exciting when somebody who is running the league is still really open to how do we improve it? How do we get this product even better? One of the unique things about this league is it's privately owned. And the clubs are privately owned. Now, a lot of leagues don't operate that way. And so what it's mean is that we want to, if the league wants to do something, they can do it faster and the clubs can grow faster. And so that's a unique opportunity, I think, for us to not be governed by all of these, really massive committees. When you say the word committee, you don't really think fast action. You think things take forever. So I'm excited for that. I don't really do well with bureaucracy. And having all of these, that's why you'll never see me going for government, right? I'm not gonna be a local MP, it's not for me, because I like where we can get shit done. And he's done that. And I think that we'll work really well together in the next decade. Look, we've got a really great ownership group. And I think one of the benefits of having other owners in the group, some of the smaller owners in there, that might own a couple of percent, some own maybe a little bit more than that, 10s and 15s. I think that when you've got a great ownership group that add value into the business, it's great. It's having a bunch of shareholders that want to do that. We've got a very unique set of owners that have all come from different backgrounds, and some are not sports at all and some are. So I don't know, who knows what the future might hold. But I think that being a part of a group like that definitely has its advantages. It was an opportunity that I had at the very beginning, but I really wanted to just understand a bit more about the business. And, I know basketball, I know business, but I didn't know the business of basketball. I had to understand that a bit more. So I wanted to understand it a bit more. So I was happy to get in at the 10% first. I spoke to a lot of people along the way. I've had some great conversations with guys like Mark Cuban, who's been very successful and built and sold out of the Dallas Mavericks, and got some advice from him and others around the place. And so for me, I wanted to dip my toe in first, I suppose. So that, the first investment, the first $4 million was a step for me to sort of see, is this right? Will this be added to the thing of what I do, and I'll just rock up and sit at the courtside seats and have some fun? Or, will I, go a little bit deeper and a little bit more serious on it? So the increase to the $10 million investment was for me kind of really seeing this as a great opportunity from a business perspective, a great opportunity to be able to even be more involved. And look, I love to add value, like not just what I've done, but I've had this unique privilege to have helped hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs around the world and literally speak about business all the time, to be in crowds of from 10 people to 25,000 people in the stadium. And I'm constantly connected into them and what works and what doesn't work. Plus, of course, my own success and what I've done in being a part of, we've done probably over 300 deals over the last 20 years, and still have investments in 80 companies now, from micro investments to, to full ownership in almost every industry we have been involved in. So it's really challenging for me to not have an investment that I don't want to add my 2 cents in. What about this? What about this? And so for me, I saw a lot of opportunity. I think it's a brilliant business. I think it's a brilliant team. It's got great heritage and culture. How do I then take that base level of foundation and then, add on the things that I know and I know really well, whether it be the experience. I know that really, really well, whether it be game day experience, whether it be memberships. We've had lots of membership-based businesses. How do we improve that? Whether it be even the players, like I had the conversation with the players the other day and I said, listen, even outside of you being on the payroll and playing, I care about you more than this. So if you need help with business, let me know. I mean, I work with a bunch of other actors and athletes and people, whether they be in the NBA or around. So I'm always working with people to show them how do they build their life beyond sports, beyond athletics and beyond being a pro athlete. So if I can help them with that as well, then I will. So I'm always trying to see where I can add value. And so this was about me saying, all right, let's go, let's do more. So, but again, I've got a great group of ownership in there. So it's, I get to really work with a great group of people that are all trying to achieve, and they're all very different. And sometimes that's great to have people with different thoughts and perspectives that are all, thinking differently. So it was a nod to me that this was time to go even deeper into it. I was very comfortable with that next step. I was comfortable with what I saw. And from a club perspective, it's a strong club. The revenues are growing, the profitability is growing, that we break records every year, better and better and better and better and better and better. And I know a winning business when I see one. And Melbourne United is definitely a winning business. Can I say all of it? I want all of it. Like I think we can do, and that's not to say we're not doing really well, because we are. But one of the cultures I have in my company is this whole idea of getting better every day. I'm very privileged to have a bunch of businesses that are category leaders, and whether it be a software platform that we have, or a retail brand that we have, or a education brand that we have, we've got some real, category leaders. And so even in those businesses that are category leaders, we're going, well, how do we do better? That's the culture that we have. How do we do better? Doesn't matter even if you come off winning the best game and you've scored the most, you've won, the best thing that you can do in business or playing sport is sit down and go, what did I do well? What can I do better? What did I do well? What can I do better? So I definitely see we can increase our kind of member engagement when there's no games on. So what else can we do to grow our grassroots programs even more and help more kids in schools and more, programs that we have? And we've got a great community team out there that are doing that. I think there's opportunities to create really cool on-day experiences as well. So I think there's another level that we can go to in creating these really unique league-leading game day experiences, which we're working on. I think that there's ways to increase some of the smaller, not as known things that we do. So for example, we've got something called United in Business, which is a business networking group that we've run for years that's part of Melbourne United. I think there's a great opportunity there to grow that and add even more value to those, United in Business members, sponsors and corporate. I think that there's, why does someone pay for sponsorship? Because they want to be getting attention for their brand and turn that attention into sales and growth. Well, how can we go deeper on those relationships and partnerships to add even more value? And we've got one of the biggest databases, close to 200,000, avid basketball fans. We've got a big social media presence. We get 10,000 people eyeballs into a stadium on a Sunday for a home game. We've got an opportunity to really amplify people's marketing and brands. So how do we do that more? I think there's opportunities there as well to create more win-wins. I'd like to win a championship as well, which would be great. But unfortunately, if Dean put me in for like the last minute of the first quarter or something like that, I could probably do a minute or two, but I don't think I could do the whole game, at the level we need to. But look, I want to win some championships as well. So I'm trying to support the coaching staff where we can, have the budgets where we can, where possible, to be able to get the right players in, to support that culture where I can. So I don't think it's one thing. I think it's just, I'm the same thing anyone. If I ever walk into a business and say, oh, we're good, I don't need to improve that or that, then we're dead, right? As soon as you think that you're done and everything's one of my secrets of success has been that even when we are doing the best, and I learned this from Jack Ma Alibaba. He said, when things are going the best, I change them the most. And that means no one can really ever catch you, because they're trying to, these guys, let's go do that. And then by the time they catch up, you're already doing that. So I always believe that, a lot of our brands, we're in competition with ourselves. I don't really care about the other guys are doing. I might learn something like, that's a nice idea, but I'm not trying to copy every business that they're doing. I want to build to a point where there's an us and a them in every business that we have. Us and everybody else. Us and everybody else. And so how do you get there? You get there through finding things that others aren't doing, finding your kind of bank zones, as I call them, having a brand that separates you from everybody else, having experience that separates you from everybody else, and creating that culture, that vibe, that energy that separates you from everybody else. And I think that applies to brands and companies. And I think it applies to the team as well. So I'm looking to add value in everywhere possible, where I think we can just keep nudging that up every season, nudge, and just to be the leaders and continue to be the leaders. There's a few things that come to mind playing. I've been very fortunate to win a couple of championships growing up. I, through no planning, I'm going to call it accidentally, played professionally for one season. I was backpacking through Ireland, and someone said to me, we have basketball in Ireland. I was like, no, you don't. You don't have this. There's no way Ireland plays basketball, right? Because there's hurling and curling and all that stuff. I'm like, there's nothing. And it's like, yeah, they do. And they told me there was a league there. So I was like, okay. So I looked it up, and I called the local team, right? The local national team. And I got through to the coach on the other. I'm like, and he's like, we're in tryouts right now. Have you played? I'm like, yeah, I played. He said, want to come down to tryouts? I was like, okay. So I'm backpacking. So I had Dunlop volleys, like volleys. So there's no cushioning. There's no Nike pump bounce or nothing. And I had like shorts, like proper shorts, not basketball shorts. So I rocked down to this thing looking like a backpacker. I trained for them. I did all right. I must have done all right, because they offered me a contract to play. And I became what's called a Bosman. So my mum's Irish, she was born there, and so I have an Irish passport. And so I ended up playing a season there. And we, a great chance to see the whole country, play at the national level, and do that. Like, it was fun to play, not the place, I suppose, to be focused on sports though, because it's big drinking culture. So it was trying to keep up with the rest of the team, which was pretty challenging. But for me, a brilliant experience. I knew that at the end of it, there was some opportunities to maybe go to other teams and stay on. I was like, it's just not for me. It was time to go to London. So that was one of the big experiences playing basketball. But another fun one. I remember, this is always stuck in my mind. I've got to have been like 12. And I remember there was this one game. It was in Kilsyth, right? In Melbourne. And I was playing for Maroondah Magic, which is the team I played for. And we're playing against this other team. And we were playing, we were like D grade, but for some reason with this fixture, we ended up playing on the show court, like the court, right? So I don't know if it was the court and like me being in a stadium, but I don't know what possessed me. But I remember shooting, and I got a 3 in, and I was young. I was, like I said, I was probably 12, 13, something like that. And then I had another shot opportunity, and it went in as well. 2 threes. I was like, they had another one, and I went in. I was like, and so I felt, do you remember NBA Jam? When it go, you're on fire, right? The ring, the ball, and so I remember would have hit, and pre-frame, I wasn't like, I became a good 3-point shooter, but I was like average, barely getting there half the time. I hit 6 threes in that game, right? When I was 12, 13. No one ever, even the parents were like, what's going on? And the last one I hit, I was close to half court. There was like 3 seconds left. I was scoring so much that they had 3 on me and 2 wandering. I just got it. I shot a 3. It went in. I got fouled. And yeah, like I said, I hit like 6, 7 threes. And I still have this vivid memory of that because it meant so much to me that I really, I was on the show court. I was a young kid, and I think I hit maybe 1 3 in a game before, but to finish on 6, 7, 8, something like that, some kind of massive number, and just feel like on fire. And I remember the parents are like, like Every shot, when every shot went in. Every shot went in, and I felt so incredible doing that. So that was a lot of fun. I think that because I became a 2-guard, right? So a 2-guard's a shooting guard. So when I played, I was paid to shoot threes, right? And create plays. And so looking back at those memories, when you're a player and you feel like you're on fire and you feel like you can't miss in anything, when you feel like you're just absolutely in that flow and you're crushing it, then life feels awesome. It feels like things make sense. And I remember in that moment, as I was very young, but I just remember this vividly, how I felt. That was definitely one of my most fond memories of basketball. Well, it was funny because when I first bought in and it was the final series was starting, for a moment there, I was like, could I become the fastest owner in professional sports to win a championship? Because I just bought in, and like we kind of lost that championship. But if we won, I was only an owner for like 3 weeks. And then if we won a championship, I was like, this will be great. But no, I think that my favorite memories have definitely been in both the final series. I think, when I went down to Tasmania for one of the games and we were down, thinking that, that energy that you get where you're like, fuck, we might lose. And everyone starts to feel that energy creeping in a little bit. And there was that one game that, Matthew Dellavedova got the ball. And I don't know what they said at the bench, but I think it was just like, Matty was just like, give me the ball, and he just drove in, he got that layup and put us up. And then, if you've ever been to the Jack Jumpers, right, they've got this sort of 4,000 person stadium, but don't let size fool you. That's loud as fuck in there. And they're screaming the whole time. There's like 40 Melbourne United supporters in there, including me and the box of some of our owners, just to see that switch to them looking at us and then us going, crazy berserk. Winning at home's awesome, but sometimes winning on the road, and again, we had the same thing in a final series with Sydney last year. I didn't enjoy this, but being there to watch, Jack McVeigh hit that half-court shot for them to win was a hard moment to be there for, but a moment for where that series turned around, where we lost, I think. And then there's been a bunch of really cool moments. I remember last season, where I sit up with my family on the sidelines, there was this one shot that Chris Golding, he shot from the corner, and it was just a really difficult shot, and on a real roll, and he hit this shot, and as he shot, he turned around as it went in, and I was kind of standing up, and he was standing there looking at me. I was looking at him, and we're just like, yeah, that was a good shot, That was kind of cool. That was a cool moment too. But I hope the best moments are still to come. So listen, I was spinning the ball, but I remember when we first did the first investment, we had the Australian, they wanted to do an article. And so they're like, pose for a photo. And they wanted to get me, I think I was sitting down. I was like trying to spin the ball, and Larry here. And so I'm trying to spin it for the photo, right? So I can spin it, but I spin it this way, which means you're not continually hitting it. You know how I don't do it that way where they keep hitting and spinning it. I can only spin it once and kind of keep it on my hand for a couple of seconds. I'm staying up a little bit more, right? That's it. So they were like, Larry's going to lean in closer. And so Larry's getting closer, and I'm like this thinking, don't fucking hit this billionaire in the face with this ball. When I'm spinning this ball like this, and so his face is here, the ball's here. It was a lot of fun. Lucky, he's got a great sense of humor, but yeah, that was a tense moment.